Hey, all right. Just doing a little check-in. This has been a journey of a couple of years. So if you want the short story, here's where it's at. After 2 years of a lot of medical appointments and definitely some changing symptoms, uh, I have a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, secondary to traumatic brain injury, and then added on top of that a diagnosis of Lewy body dementia. So if you just want the finals, there it is. So yeah, just having turned 54 a couple weeks ago, um, I've got cognitive impairment issues and now a dementia diagnosis, and all before age 55. So thanks for listening. Thanks for understanding. If you want to go into it a little bit more, keep listening and I'll kind of tell you the longer story how I ended up where I'm at. So 2 years ago, going to my general practitioner, just asked Diane, hey, is there anything you've noticed I should bring up? And she said, yeah, you've just seemed a little spacey. So go to my GP, get to the end of my appointment. Hey, is there anything else, Rowdy? Yeah, uh, Diane says that I seem a little spacey. And she goes, okay, well, let's check your labs because, I have a thyroid that's been resected. I have small bowel missing. I have single-sided deafness. And so those are all things that could have an effect on my cognitive ability. So B12, testosterone, thyroid levels, all that stuff comes back normal. So that's not what it is. But we talk a little bit about how many concussions I've had, more than Jalen Hurts, that's for sure. And so she goes, let's just send you to get a brain scan. I'd had plenty of brain CTs when I became deaf in, I think it was like 2022. But they wanted some newer information. So I get some brain scans, and eventually that leads to, enough of a to let's send you to neurology. And by now a year has passed, and my symptoms are a little more apparent. And this is often where people ask me, like, hey, what were you feeling? What caused you to bring this up? And, everyone I think is a little different on this, but what most people then follow up with is, how do I know what's serious and what's not? Like, everyone that's around my age says, yeah, I walk into a room and I forget why I was going there. And that's normal. There are age-related changes to your cognitive ability. And then there's things that are a little more serious. The easiest way it was described to me is, what is the import of what you've forgotten? Why you walked in a room really and truly isn't that important. But if you start going to work on the wrong day, if you start missing appointments, if you start forgetting people's names, if you start driving to the wrong place, those were all the things that I was experiencing. I was going to appointments on the wrong day and time. I was driving to the wrong place. I had a terrible time taking in and retrieving new information. So these lead to a referral to a dementia specialist here in San Antonio. He and I got along okay. Eventually that relationship would change to me not being happy, but that's okay. It is what it is, and I don't mind telling doctors to get stuffed and finding a different one. So I go to this neurologist. He agrees that I should be looked at, but he's also cautious because of my age. I really am too young to have kind of what's going on. So we agree that I've had a lot of concussions for anyone. And we then do labs again. We do some genetic testing. We do some family history stuff. And we find that I have the two APOE4 markers, which is a considerable indicator for possible future Alzheimer's disease. And I take a 5-hour neuropsychological exam, which is 5 hours you in a room with a proctor, and they ask you all sorts of crazy stuff, make you do all sorts of problem solving and memory games while they time you and stare at you for about 5 hours. It's pretty comprehensive. And I had another brain MRI. So we get to a point where, hey, you've got this genetic strike against you. You've got a neuropsych test that definitely shows you have a deficit in your attention, you have a deficit in executive function, you have a deficit in short-term memory. You definitely, you have something going on. We think it's primarily because of all of your traumatic brain injury history, but you've got this underlying Alzheimer's possibility. Let's just rule it out. So we go for a PET scan, which insurance denies the day before the test. And then we decide to do a Lewy Pulse blood test, which at the time was newly approved, cash paid, no big deal. It's like $400. That test comes back high equivocal. So not a negative, not a positive. And that makes my doctor really hum and haw. We do a little more neuropsych testing, and they decide that I really have issues that mimic both the storage of short-term memory and then the retrieval of it. And the storage issues, they say, are related to the TBI, and the retrieval issues are a dementia process. And so in his look at the totality of things, he tells me that I am cooking Alzheimer's, and that, boy, it must suck to be me. And basically that's the end of my appointments. And this doctor leaves this practice, and I'm kind of in the lurch now. And I have what feels like life-changing news. I've got these cognitive issues that I'm aware of. The people in my life around me are definitely noticing them. And now they throw early onset Alzheimer's on top of it, which was kind of understood on my end to be like, hey, you've got 2 years and then you're going to be in a home. And so it was really just kind of, a big change to my life and my family's life. But at the end of my time with that doctor, he had referred me to a neurodegenerative disease specialist center. And eventually I was accepted as a patient there. I went and had my intake and my hour-long H&P with them. And they agree, yeah, you have cognitive impairment due to traumatic brain injury, but you also have issues with short-term memory related to dementia. But we don't think it's Alzheimer's. We think it could be something else. So another brain MRI, that doesn't show enough to tell them one thing or another. PET scan is denied. They don't want to repeat the Lewy Pulse blood test. So in their estimation, the next thing I need to do is get a LP, a lumbar puncture, spinal tap. So at the end of April, I get a lumbar puncture that they're doing 3 major tests for. One is for the presence of the tangles, the taus, the proteins that would represent Alzheimer's disease process. The second would represent some sort of inflammatory process in my brain, which might be possible. I mean, I have Crohn's disease, I've had autoimmune disease for a long time. I've got kind of some of these other, disease processes. So they're like, let's look at that. And then the third one is looking at a Parkinson's-esque disease called Lewy Body dementia. The first 2 vials come back negative pretty quickly. I mean, it's on my patient portal. After a lifetime of being a patient and then working in medicine for, over a decade, I'm a pretty astute patient, and so I can tell that I have a negative Alzheimer's test from my cerebral spinal fluid. Awesome. And then I get back a negative test for any sort of inflammatory process in my brain. Awesome. And then I get a note from the Mayo Clinic that says, hey, we've got your stuff, we're waiting. And we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And so today's June, 13th or something? And I finally get them to release the PDF of my results to my chart. And I pull it up, and sure enough, I have a positive test for the synuclein folded proteins, or whatever it is, that indicate Lewy body disease. So of course the question is this a scalar test? Is there like a 1 to 10, and were you a 3, a 10, or whatever? And that's not how this test is. This test is what they call a rule-in test. This does instead of saying, hey, you don't have something, this is a you have something. And when this test is positive, it is positive. Mayo Clinic gives it a 97% specificity and sensitivity rating. So there is no, oh, you're kind of positive, or you're very positive. No, you're all in or you're out on this test, and I am all in. So that leads me now to what I thought was early onset Alzheimer's disease now isn't. What was a cognitive impairment from 7 concussions, yeah, that's still there. But now we're adding on this Parkinson's family thing that's called Lewy Body dementia. And so thankfully, being young, the glide slope to real deterioration is a little bit longer in a normal person. Unfortunately, I have all of these other comorbidities. I have the history of concussion and traumatic brain injury. I have, a hormonal thing with my thyroid being gone. I have an autoimmune disease and Crohn's disease. I have single-sided deafness, which has actually been way harder on my life than I'd ever anticipated. As an aside, we often, as kids, played the joke, hey, if you had to lose, would you rather be blind or deaf or dumb, or lose your sense of smell or lose your hearing? And you're kind of like, oh, losing my hearing, that'd be way easier to handle. Let me tell you, it is not. The amount of information that I do not take in by being partially deaf really makes my days a struggle. And it leads to a ton of processing fatigue that again plays in with the cognitive impairment. And so, yeah, things get really crazy. But so the good news was no early onset Alzheimer's disease, which really felt like a death sentence, to be honest. But now I have Lewy body dementia, and instead of a rapid mental decline that I'd expected, now I'm going to also deal with some very marked physical changes as this progresses. So, yeah, thanks for listening to almost 15 minutes of me talk about health stuff, like every other old person. Follow-up question from people who are interested in my life: what are you doing? What are they doing about it? What's next? And so in my case, very likely a sleep study, because I have issues with yelling and thrashing at night, so we need to look at my REM sleep. We'll probably look at how I transfer dopamine. That's another aspect of this kind of Parkinsonian style Lewy body dementia. And then still, it's lifestyle things. It's, eating a balanced diet. It's getting exercise. It's keeping my brain engaged. It's trying to learn new skills. It's being social. And so those are things that I already do pretty much on a high level anyways. But yeah, there's no pill, there's no surgery, there's no treatment. There's not a lot of options for me, frankly. And so I am just smiling and writing this out. My next doctor's appointment is in October, but I don't suspect I'll have any substantial news for you. It's just going to be more correlation. It's just going to be firming up this diagnosis and helping me and those I live with get through it. So again, if you've watched this whole thing, thank you so much. I really appreciate your love and care and understanding. And if you want to reach out, go for it. I respond to comments, and I hope that you are having a wonderful time yourself. And again, I appreciate your love and understanding.